Yeah, my name's Alan, and thank you all for coming. Damien, in his wisdom, has turned the air conditioning on, and it was a bit blowy, but we're turning it down now a bit. But it actually is quite stuffy in here, so if we get really stuffy, then I just have to put up with it, I suppose. We haven't got any windows or anything. But anyway, you can turn the air conditioning off in a little while, or keep it. What do you think?
The cool changes come through,
yeah.
But it's still really hot.
Yeah, I know, you feel it.
I'm trying to cool it down. And,
yeah.
Anyway, so
okay.
one on each side.
Yeah, cool.
It's very hot.
Yeah, I think we will get, with people generate a lot of heat. So as long as it's not too noisy for people, if you don't mind, we'll maybe just keep those two on for the moment. And then if you start freezing, then you won't freeze. Okay. You have to, okay. So yeah, I mean, that's Melbourne's weather, isn't it? It goes from 40 degrees to 20 degrees in about an hour, in a couple of hours. So it gives us a great teaching on impermanence and how we can't, how things are uncertain. So in Melbourne, you have to go out not only with your t-shirt and thongs on, but a raincoat, a hat, an umbrella, and a coat, and that's the impermanent nature of things. So this is Tara Institute, and look, this is the second of this series. It's only a short series because we've got Christmas coming, and then we've got all those activities for Christmas. Let everyone have a little break. Hopefully, by you being here, and as I said last week, I'm really impressed that people take time out of their extremely busy lives to partake of something like this, which is very weird. It's a very weird thing to do, to sit quietly and not talk and not do anything, and to not go shopping, to not be seeking the next thing out there that will bring you happiness or bring somebody else happiness, or that next person or that next experience, but rather to think, wow, I mean, I presume a lot of you have tried that and realise it doesn't work all the time. I mean, it can work sometimes, it can work temporarily, but then it seems to wear out, and then you're hungry for the next experience, and then you try that one, and then that works for a little while, and then it fades out, then you've got to go for the next one. So you're on an endless cycle of this, and you never get off it. But by being here tonight, I think you're stating, wow, you know, I've got a bit of an understanding of that, and I really do appreciate it. I think it's quite a marvellous understanding to seek the causes of happiness internally rather than purely externally. I mean, we've got to eat, we've got to have clothing, we've got to pay our bills. We can't that to not be purely focused on that. You need friends too. You need relationships. We're not meant to be alone. So we need to work at friendship, at love, at giving love, and then trying to obtain meaningful relationships. That's all valid. It's all valid. But within that context, we try to have a little bit of, not be totally dependent on the external world, but think, wow, what is the easiest and most reliable source of happiness? And when we investigate that, we find that it actually comes from the mind. Your body's health is very important, of course it is, and that's extremely important. And when people are sick, then we feel tremendous sorrow and tremendous compassion for them. And there will be people in this room who are very sick, and physically, and that's very sad. But the mind also can even overturn that. I've had the pleasure, I won't say the pleasure, I've had the experiences in my life, being able to watch religious practitioners get very sick and die, and they do so with a degree of peacefulness and contentment, which is quite extraordinary, and it's quite extraordinary. And so that's the power of their mind, can even overcome a lot of the suffering of the body. So that's what's amazing. So that's the basic premise we have in Buddhist philosophy, is that the mind is more powerful a determinant of happiness and joy than anything else. Okay, so how do we explore that? Well, with the principle, there are many ways we can explore this. One is to just cultivate the mind by learning, by studying, by listening, So we talk about hearing, and then we talk about contemplating, and then we talk about meditating. So that are three tools we use. So we hear. We have to hear or study or learn about a path, a true path to happiness, and a true path to free us from suffering. That's what we have to learn. So study, learn, go on YouTube, turn up here and have a class, or do whatever experience that you're capable of, and learn, and then contemplate upon that and spend some time investigating it, because Buddhists don't believe in blind faith. We don't believe that if you hear something you should accept it. Nope, not in the slightest. If you don't hear it and it sounds like absolute rubbish, you put your hand up and say, "Excuse me, no, that contradicts my belief system, or contradicts my experience, or contradicts what somebody else has said," and then try to find out how to reconcile it or not reconcile it. If things can't be reconciled, then you go on another path, another journey. But in Buddhism, we believe in the contemplation and reasoning and logic and debating and asking questions. No one's going to stand here or sit here and say, "Look, you must believe this because the Buddha, that person 2,500 years ago said so, and my authoritative person's better than yours, and so you should forget about your authoritative person or authoritative source and go with mine because mine's the best." We're not going to say that. We're going to say you investigate. You investigate and find out what works for you, because individually we each have to have our own path, and your path will be different to the person sitting next to you or the person behind you or to my path or anybody else's path. You all go down a different path. We're all searching for the same goal, and that is to be happy and to avoid suffering. So we do that first of all by hearing, by listening to the teachings, reading, whatever mode of getting information you use. Critical to that is to really have a deep relationship with somebody who can teach you, and that's why we talk about the guru. How the guru is the source of all that wisdom and knowledge. So the guru at some stage comes into it. You don't have to leap into a relationship with a guru, but have in your mind that one day, hopefully some person will be there to be my guide. And then to listen, to contemplate, and then finally to meditate. Because meditate requires familiarity to be able to do it. The Tibetan word to meditate is gom, and that translates as familiarity. So you can't meditate on something brand new. I can't say to you, "Okay, let's all meditate on how a computer chip works." Okay, all meditate on it. I mean, you can't. No one knows. Well, there might be one person in the room who knows how a computer chip works, but the rest of us don't. So we can't. So we have to be familiar with it. Have to be familiar. So meditation, or the Tibetan word gom, means familiar. So as we meditate, we have to have things upon which we are familiar. Now, usually in these classes, we use very familiar objects, such as the breathing we use. That's the best one. It really is the best one, because it's so simple, and we've got it all the time. If you suddenly have an urgent need to meditate, and something's happened, you've had an argument, or you're feeling really sad, or something depressed, you can just pull out the breathing meditation just like that, because it's there, it's with you. You just meditate, Very, very good. It's a very good way of diffusing intense emotions. Very, very good. And it's also the best one for distracted minds. And I think in our 21st century world, the distracted mind is a real killer of deep, sustaining happiness and joy and contentment. So the distracted mind, we each have to learn how to deal with that. And we don't deal with a distracted mind by watching television or getting that thing and doing text messages or Facebook. That doesn't work. It just actually increases distraction, unfortunately. And then the distracted mind it's exhausting. It's exhausted. It's probably a neurological basis. It's probably using up all those neurotransmitters in your brain, and all those poor axons and neurons are getting thrashed. So they're suffering. Just like when you use a muscle too much in the gym, it's sore, and you hurt it. Well, I think if you too much distraction thrashes those neurons and the neurotransmitters and burn them out, and then you're tired. So the opposite of that is to have a non-distracted mind, which we try to do in meditation, and that's simple, and it's really, really, really good. It just helps. It's just like a universal help by being able to clear the mind. And what's so tragic is very few people have this tool, and yet it's so easily available. It's so easy. So presto, you guys have got this tool. You're here. You're going to meditate. We will meditate once I stop talking, but I'm distracted too, so I have to keep talking. So what is meditation? Meditation is focusing on a familiar object. Now we can do meditations with an analytical object, and we will do that later as we go through the subject matter. There's like a subject matter for these classes on emptiness and dependent arising. So we will do an analytical meditation, which is we take like a logical premise, and then we build on our experience until we come to a conclusion. And the conclusion is new knowledge, but it's built on a basis of our wisdom, our current wisdom. So we can do analytical meditations. But for the first one, I think when we just come in, we need to chill, we need to relax, then just doing simple breathing meditations easy. There are lots of other, these are called stabilizing meditations. There are lots of other ones you can do. One that we do a lot is actually to focus on another single object, and that might be like the Buddha's image. Many of us try to visualize the Buddha's image, and that's lovely. That's a lovely thing to do. So just visualize in a space in front of yourself the Buddha sitting there. It doesn't have to be as big as that. It can only be like maybe the size of your hand, and just sitting there, like maybe on a lotus or a cushion or something, and sitting there and just focusing on the Buddha's image. That's another beautiful meditation. And it's very stilling. And the wonderful thing about that is because the Buddha's form is naturally virtuous, then your mind transforms into virtue. Virtue is good. We think virtue is good. That's how virtue is good. Non-virtue is bad. So something that creates goodness easily, like just visualizing that, or just looking at it, that's easy. So virtue is good. And then non-virtue, which is like negative states of mind, then they're bad. Why they're bad? Because they cause suffering. Why is virtue good? Causes happiness. Really simple. When we look into causality and the law of karma, it's very, very clear that non-virtue creates suffering, virtue creates happiness. So with meditating on the breath, when it's not really a virtuous or a non-virtuous mind, but we can transform it that way depending on our motivation. If our motivation is, let's say, a very low, immediate motivation, oh my God, I am in deep shit, I need to meditate, I've got so much pain, get me out of this, breath, don't kill him, don't punch him, don't get the knife out of the kitchen drawer, don't stab that person, breathe my breath on me. Okay, that's good. You don't go to jail. That's good. You don't commit homicide. That's very, very good. It's a very good immediate goal to achieve, to be able to not act, impulsively or something. So very good like that. Or it might be Buddhists believe in future rebirth. We believe in reincarnation. And we can sort of prove it. And then, so we might think, I'm going to meditate so that I can get a higher rebirth. So in my next life I'll be born as a human or some very special being. And then that's okay. That's a good motivation to meditate. That makes it virtuous. Or we might say, I'm sick of all the suffering. The whole of my existence is pervaded by suffering. So therefore I'm going to meditate so that I can be completely free of all suffering for myself, because I need to get out. Like it's a self-centered motivation, but that there's Still good motivation, still virtuous motivation. Then there's the other motivation, what we call the Mahayana motivation, the great vehicle motivation, whereby we meditate even on something as simple as the breath. But we might have the meditation, I'm meditating on the breath so that I can still my mind, so that I can purify my mind, so therefore I can develop great love and compassion and wisdom, so that not only can I remove my own suffering, but the suffering of every living being. And so that would be the great Mahayana motivation. So if you meditate on the breath like that, then suddenly your practice becomes incredibly virtuous, incredibly beneficial. So how do you meditate? You do not have to sit on the floor. Don't have to sit cross-legged. You can sit on chairs, it's fine. You can even lie down. One of the most important factors is to have a straight back, if you can, if that's comfortable. Then we talk about the 7-point Virachana posture, which I don't need to go into, but you sort of just get comfortable. Just get comfortable. Probably it's best if you can, you put your feet flat on the floor, if you're on a chair, if you can. If you can't, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Too much fixation on, those, got to sit painfully. But if you can, you sit cross-legged, because it actually is, it's very stable. You become a triangle, and then it's like triangles are naturally stable. And then if you have a cushion under your bum, it sort of makes it, so it's good if you can. So if you just try, then we're going to meditate on the breath. Now when we talk about meditating on the breath, it is just the air going in and out. The air goes from your nostrils down to your diaphragm and out again. And that's one, in, out, two, and then if your mind's very distracted, then counting it helps. Maybe count it up to 7 and then start again at 1. Count up to 7. When you're very comfortable at that level, then you can go maybe counting up to 21, and then when you get up to about 21 or more, then you can sort of just go. Now, we'll just do some breathing meditation. Now, some people focus on the air going in and out of the nostrils, like the sensation of the air going in and out. That's fine. Some people just think of the diaphragm. We don't breathe like that. Don't breathe through your chest. Breathe through your diaphragm. Now, everything okay? Okay. Cool. Okay. So we'll have questions at the end. I like questions at the end, because if I keep talking, that means I can reduce the length of the questions, and that's very good. So we'll have questions at the end, and then we'll just meditate now. So get yourself comfortable, and then we'll just do. You can even stand. I mean, if standing's more comfortable because you have a back problem or something, standing's fine. Cool. So now just do the breathing meditation for about 10 minutes or so. About halfway through, I'm going to just give a little reminder, which is going to be bring your attention back to your breath, because probably some of you have wandered down to Southland or something, so you have to come back. So those of you who are down in Southland already, please come back into the room. Come into the room. So come into the room. Okay, so bring your mind back into the room, bring your mind into your body, and keep your mind and your body together for the next 10, maybe 15 minutes or so. Don't just meditate on the breath, with the air going in and out, the nostrils down to your diaphragm and out, counting it if you wish. So meditate on the breath. So if your mind has wandered away, bring it back into the room, bring your mind back into the body, and focus once again on the breathing. Okay, you can just slowly cease the meditation now. Bring your attention back to the room and relax your body. So, good, thank you. It's lovely to do these sort of things together. I think it's better. You'd better sort of, somehow we imbibe something from other people when you do it together. So look, thank you very much. I enjoy it very much. It's a great pleasure. Now we try to sort of have a topic, sort of something that people can think about and go away and study and learn a little bit about. So there's a concept of what we call emptiness or selflessness that many of you may have heard about. It's a fascinating concept. I don't think it exists to the depth that it exists in Buddhism in any other religion. So I think, or philosophy. So I think it is really special. It's really, really special. Sorry? It's impossible. So selflessness or emptiness is impossible. Well, I suppose we would say that we'll come to some of the discussion about it. But by understanding emptiness via dependent arising, which is the easiest way to understand emptiness. So it is complex. It is difficult. And I think that's because people maybe teach it in the wrong way. Sometimes they tackle it from the front on, rather than going around it. And the way to go around it is by understanding dependent arising. And if we understand dependent arising, which means how things arise in dependence on others, then we can understand that if things were not empty, then things could not arise. I'll say that again. If things were not empty of existing from their own side, without depending upon anything else, or inherently existent, if things were not empty of that, then production of everything we experience is impossible. Production of ourselves, production of our bodies, production of our environment is impossible. So in that sense that we could actually say the opposite of what you're saying, that without emptiness, existence is impossible, because production of effects from causes cannot occur. And so that is what we're... Sorry? No, he didn't. It's all good. Well, yeah, good, okay. Well, that's okay. It will become clearer. It will become clearer. So when we're talking about dependent arising, we mean that things arise in dependence on something else. Now, I'll just... Before we go, I'm sort of referring to that statue in the middle there is Lama Tsongkhapa. He's the founder of the Gelugpa tradition, which is our sort of tradition that we follow in Tibetan Buddhism. There are four main schools in Tibetan Buddhism: the Gelugpas, the Sakya, the Nyingmas, and the Kagyus. And so he was really one of the founders of the Gelugpa. Now, he wrote a text called In Praise of Dependent Arising, and I've been using that as sort of the thread for understanding this, because I just want to read, there's a text called The Praise to Dependent Arising, and I'm just going to read this verse, because if nothing else you get out of tonight, if you just sort of think about this verse, then that's all you need to do. Nothing else. Nothing I say is any use. But what he said, 600 years ago is really of some use. So, but me, I'm just jabbering. But what he says is great. He said is great. So he said in this text, whatever depends on causes and conditions is itself empty of inherent existence. Things arise in dependence on the other. Nothing exists without depending upon the other. So I'll read it again a couple of times. Whatever depends on causes and conditions is itself empty of inherent existence. Things arise in dependence on the other. Nothing exists without depending upon the other. So, I think we're going to talk about understanding emptiness, or the lack of things existing from their own side without depending upon anything else. That is the definition of the self that we're going to refute. Now, in particularly when we talk about causes and conditions, okay, so, and how things arise, because we experience we're sort of scientific in the West, which is good, because I think naturally we sort of agree that things arise from causes. We say, look, this cup of, I wanted a glass of water, so I had to get a cup, an empty cup. I had to go to the tap, I had to turn on the tap, and water had to come out, and then I've got a cup of water. It just didn't materialise. I just didn't think, I want a cup of water and then it here, or I didn't go out to the garden and pick up some dirt and then drink it. I mean, we naturally understand that things arise from causes and conditions. However, then we have lapses. We have lapses in our life. For example, we might say that, right, I've got a great job. I've got money. I've bought myself a car, I've got myself a house, I've got myself this, I've got that, I've got a family, I've got, whatever relationship. And I created those conditions, and I created it, and that's, me, did that. And we can sort of bask in that glory and feel a certain sense of satisfaction. But then we might say, something crappy happened today, and it was bad luck, my car got smashed. I walked out in the car park and it had been smashed. Or I went to the doctor and I got told I had cancer. It stinks. Or my wife left me. It's just bad luck. Or somebody died who I love. Bad luck. Or like volcano that just exploded today in New Zealand. How tragic. This volcano. I mean, okay, so today the volcano exploded in New Zealand and killing people. So very, very tragic. So that's just bad luck. So we sort of compartmentalise our rational way of thinking. We say, it's sort of like, when good things happen, I've created the causes, but when bad things happen, it's sort of like bad luck, which means bad luck means sort of like causelessness, or it's no cause at all. So things just happen. Or something makes them happen. So maybe there's a God out there who points his or her fickle finger of fate on me and says, you will suffer today, or you will lose your child, or you will get cancer, or you will lose your job, or you will something, or you'll die when a volcano explodes. I mean, maybe that's another thing. Maybe we could say that God created everything. There are many religions that believe God creates everything. That's okay. You can believe that. It's still a cause, but then we have to look at the rationality of being a primal substance, or some sort of being who directs the flow of cause and everything. So we can debate that. Some people believe generally that there's no causality. There were various schools of philosophy through the ages who believe that things are causeless. There was one school of philosophy called the hedonist school. I can't remember what it was in Sanskrit. At the Buddha's time, and the head of that school denied a relationship between cause and effect. And the reason why he denied wanted to do that was basically he wanted to have sex with his daughter, and everyone said that it was a bad thing to do to have sex with your daughter. But he said, well, I don't believe in the relationship between cause and effect, so I negate that. And he developed a school of philosophy. And we call it can be translated as a hedonist school, and that was he negated that so he could fulfil his own sort of selfish aims. So different people have different ways of looking at causality. Now, the reason why it's important is that we tend to believe that things exist concretely. Like, I believe Alan. I believe I exist here. I'm here, I'm me. And it's just like, bang, I just came into being. like I'm solid, I'm concrete. But really, how did Alan come into being? Well, this moment of Alan came from the previous moment of Alan, and the previous moment of Alan came from another and another. So Alan had all these causes. So when I try to find Alan at any one of these, this line of moments, I say, well, they're all causes that created this moment, and this moment that I have now is the cause for the next moment. And so it goes on and on. And then we look at all the causes. Well, how did Alan get here? Well, Alan had to eat. So the causes of Alan are my food. So food is Alan. Air is Alan. Water is Alan. Clothing is Alan. Deodorant that Alan has to put on because he smells just like all human beings. Everything. The motor car Alan drove to get here. The shoes Alan wears. And then, in some ways, I'm dependent on other causes, like the reason why I'm here is because of you. Without you, I wouldn't be here. So you're the cause for me being here. So the reason I exist here is because of you. Without you, I wouldn't exist here. I'd be somewhere else. I might be watching Foxtel, but I wouldn't be here without you. So you're the cause of me too. So because of many causes, but we have a view that we're causeless, that concrete, solid nature of ourselves makes us feel that we've got a solidity and a concreteness and an independence of existence that is not real. It's not real. We actually are the synthesis of causes and conditions. Those causes and conditions that we are at this point in time will be the causes and conditions for the future. And this gives us great hope. Because if we posit that that's the way existence occurs, then that means happiness has causes and conditions. That means sadness or suffering has causes and conditions. So we just have to now find out, wow, what are those causes for happiness and what are the causes for suffering? And just be very, very skillful. Now, the root cause of all suffering is said to be the clinging to a very strong conception of the I, at a very raw level. It's a very raw level. And this I to which I cling at this very raw level, has the aspect of appearing as if it doesn't depend upon anything else. It's a very raw, deep concept or appearance that we have. And when that appearance arises, then we grasp at that appearance. And that grasping at that appearance of the I or the self existing from its own side without depending upon anything else is the root, what we call the root of samsara or the root of suffering. Now the way to gradually erode it is by understanding dependency. That things depend on causes and conditions. And then at a more subtler level there are things dependent on parts or dependent upon the other, shall we say. And then finally the most subtle way of understanding dependency is by the mind. That in one way, how do things ultimately exist if they exist as a mere label by the mind? So how does Alan exist? Alan is just a label. When I really search for Alan, I can't find him anywhere in these parts, in my feet, my legs, my hands, my arms. I can't find him in any part of the body. Can I find him in any part of the mind? Well, what's the mind? It's got many aspects. It's got feelings, it's got intelligence, it's got memories, it's got emotions, it's got cognitive functions. Can't find him anywhere. So when I search for that Alan, all I can find is the label Alan upon this set of fluctuating, moving functions, or the spaces and the functions it has. This functions as Alan, and it's appropriate to name this as Alan, but when I search for Alan, all I can find is the label. So that's the most subtle way that dependent arising works. So that's emptiness in 25 words or less. You can all go now, you've all become enlightened, and I'll go have a cup of tea. But for those who haven't, you can stay and we'll do a little bit of meditating because it's fun to meditate. Now the meditation on this is just a really simple meditation. Well, we don't do complex meditations. The meditation can be on causes and conditions, and you go through this simple meditation to what I just said then about yourself. Okay, who are you? Say your name. I, whose name is blah blah blah. I have arisen from causes and conditions. And you go back and say, look, okay, all right, it's 8:44 p.m. on the 9th of December. I think it's the 9th of December, 2019, okay. I am here because of all these causes and conditions. And somebody drove me here, I caught a train, I've walked here, I had my breakfast, I had my dinner, I had a cup of tea, I got dressed, I got clothed, somebody carried me, somebody helped me, and I got here. And then prior to that, what were the causes for before then, during the day? All the causes had to come together. Maybe you were in a car accident today and you walked away from the car accident. If you hadn't walked away from the car accident, you wouldn't be here. Maybe something happened today which was totally weird and you ended up here. Totally, wow, how did that happen? A whole series of causes and conditions. Just look at what happened today. All those causes and conditions allowed you to be here. When you add all those up, even in one day, it's extraordinary. To get here, if you had to work at the probabilities, if you were a mathematician, and there was one person who was a mathematician here last week, and if you just talk about the probability of you being here, it's always 1 over infinity, or sort of 1 divided by infinity. I don't know, it's pretty small. But somehow you're here. Causes and conditions, as extraordinary as they are. And then yesterday, today's you dependent on all the causes and conditions of yesterday, and all the causes and conditions of the day before. And then you think of, your baby, and then you're born, and then what's the causes and conditions? Yeah, they have to have a mother and a father, a sperm and an egg. So what's ultimately in this life? The sperm and the egg. Now, we believe, because of reincarnation, that since things have causes and conditions, then because using that logic of causes and conditions, we can say that the causes and conditions of the body are the sperm and egg coming together, and the causes and conditions of mind are the previous moment of mind. The cause and conditions of mind are the previous moment of mind. So the thought before this thought is its cause. And then this thought I've got now is the cause for the next one. So mind is a continuum. So therefore, whenever life began, whether it's a sperm and egg coming together or whenever, that's when the physical substance of the body had its cause, primary cause for this life, substantial cause for this life. Then the substantial cause for this life's mind was the previous moment of mind. So that's how we sort of can prove, in our Buddhist logic-y sort of way, that there's a previous moment to this existence. And if there's a previous moment to this existence, therefore there's a previous life. That's what we believe. So that's the way we sort of prove it. So now, this meditation is on the causes and conditions of your existence now. We're now 8:47. So 3 minutes of causes and conditions have evolved since we just last said the time. And in those, look at all the causes and conditions that have arisen and the effects they've had. So we are a ceaseless flow. We're just like a ceaseless river, like tumbling water, tumbling over rocks and swirling and aggregating different events and things that happen to us to create something new. Every moment we're new and novel. That's why that concrete view of ourselves is gradually reduced. Gradually reduced. Okay, so now, we meditate on that. So get yourself comfortably uncomfortable. And this will only take about 5 or maybe 7 or 8 minutes. And then we can sort of have some questions or something. Okay. So just to remind ourselves, we're going to meditate using logic, all the causes and conditions that arose in this very moment, to get you to this very moment. All the causes and conditions that you are now, and then the causes and conditions that had to be there for you to leave home, and the causes and conditions that evolved for you during the day, for you to be here. And then, this year, all the way back to when you were born. And then those causes and conditions existing prior to the first moment of this life. So we'll do this meditation now. Just start from this moment And then I'll lead it because it's a bit. I love the sound of my own voice, so I have to keep talking. So, but I'll try to lead it, so just in case. Okay, so the causes and conditions are now. Just think about that. The causes and conditions now. Now think of the causes and conditions that brought you here tonight. All the causes and conditions that were necessary to bring you here tonight. Now all the causes and conditions that were necessary today. All the causes and conditions today that made up your experience, that allowed you to experience today. Now go back a year, all the causes and conditions, one after the other, that have been needed for me to experience my life for the last year. Go back in time, all the causes and conditions that have brought you to this point for the last year. Now go to the moment when life began in this life. All the causes and conditions that had to occur to you. Going back in time to the moment when this human life began. So now we're at the moment when this human life began. The constituents from the mother and father, the substantial cause for the body, the substantial cause for the mind is the previous moment of mind. So in that moment before this life began, there was a previous moment of mind. And that was this Alan, this I, this me, in a previous life, with their own causes and conditions. So now go deeper, and by logic and reasoning, understand that there was a life before this one. So now you can just relax and try to maintain a calm state of mind, and we'll have a few questions or not. Hello. Hi.
That kind of answers what I was going to ask you, because of Bob Sharple's, he said feel your presence, and finally I understood. Before I was scrambling and thinking, well, I'm only what's I miss on that look. But when he said feel your presence and also feel your sense of yourself in your body, it came to me.
Oh, good.
And but I was going to say to you, what I feel in this presence is like it's not familiar, and I know I'm not my name, so it's quite. I mean, I've been meditating for 10 years, but I come to my presence and it doesn't feel familiar, it just feels like a body. Like when you meditate, do you feel familiar?
So the comment is about sort of what is this experience of yourself? I suppose you're saying, what is the experience of yourself when you meditate? I think last week we were trying to meditate on ourselves and look at the impermanent nature of ourselves. So that's one of the aspects of ourself. This self. Yeah, and because it's constantly changing. And then this week we're looking at the aspect of ourself as being, and that's because we have an innate view that we are permanent and unchanging. But when we undergo a bit of this analysis, we realise that innate view is sort of wrong, because we actually are changing all the time. And so is everything around us. And then we have an innate view that we're sort of independent. We have an innate view that we're independent. But when we do this meditation, we realise, we're not independent, we're very dependent on causes. We have an innate view that we're partless, that there's just Alan. But then when we chop me up and have a look, I see Alan's got parts, arms, legs, fingers, nose, emotions, feelings, all cut me up into however. And then, so that innate view of being partless, just being like a singleness, is wrong too. And then there's an innate view that we have, like I am self-sufficient and substantially existent in terms of self-sufficiency, in the sense that like Alan is something separate from this, and he is like an overarching sort of order or king ordering around this. And you sort of say that, you say, I am going here, I am in charge. So we have these innate views about ourselves, and then when we investigate them, we find, well, they're not substantiated by our meditation. And then there's the most strong one, which is, and even further along that process, is to believe that there is something that exists from its own side without depending upon anything else. And that belief is we call the view of inherent existence, that something exists from its own side without depending upon anything else. Now, as we go through this analysis, this more and more subtle analysis, we basically understand that this I, the sense of self, when we analyse, we only find the only final mode of existence is a mere label on this basis, and it's imputed by thought. So there is a basis, there is thought, and there is imputation as a label. So those three, if we really want to find what's your name, sorry? Mandy. So if we really want to find Mandy, then really let's say, what is Mandy in the final analysis? Mandy is just a label on this imputed by mind. So that's for all of us too. And then it can be a bit freaky, because then you say, oh my God, I've invested so much time and effort and sacrifice and pain to making me something, and then now we're cutting it apart. And what are we leaving you with? Well, actually leaving us all with freedom. We're leaving us all with freedom because we're clinging to a false view of ourselves and others. Then we get into all sorts of strife. You fall in love with somebody and you believe they exist permanently, and you exist, and there's something there from its own side, and that love exists permanently, and it's going to be there forever. And then it falls apart, and our life is devastated because we didn't understand reality, and the reality is that things are impermanent and things dependent on causes and conditions, and when those causes and conditions aren't there anymore, things disappear. Hello, no, question? Yeah. Sorry, the view of inherent existence, yeah? Yeah, I'd love to. If I was smart enough, I'd love to elaborate on it, but I struggle on it. Okay, yeah. Well, the view of inherent existence is by definition, is that believing that things exist from their own side without depending upon anything else. That is the view of inherent existence. Now, we have that view of ourselves at a very deep level, so a view of sense of I or a self at a very deep level, and we hold on to that. And because we hold on to that, then that sense of I, and that I exists very concretely from its own side without depending upon anything else. Then the next step from that is to believe in mine, M-I-N-E, mine. So we say I, and then I go my. Have you a concept? This is a concept of possession, a concept of possession. This I then can possess. And then we go, this my can possess what? So I possess my watch. I lost my watch, and I was very upset because it's an expensive watch. So suddenly this I was upset. It lost the watch because it's my watch. So there's I, then there's mine, then there's the object of attachment or the object of anger. You're my enemy. I hate you and you hate me. It seemed very nice, but for the purpose of this illustration, you're my enemy. So therefore, once again, this I, mine, my enemy, and then once there's that, there's my anger, and then there's my retribution, and then there's the consequences of that. So it all comes down, all those experiences, attachment, anger, jealousy, all the negative minds have as their root the concept of an inherently existent I. Now we can still act We can still do things and get rid of that concept of inherent existence. We're just freer. We're freer because we're not bound by a false conception. I think generally in life you could say that if you're making decisions based on a false premise, then you're going to make bad decisions because they won't concur with reality. But if you make decisions based on a true premise, which is the way things really do exist, which is as dependently arisen, as dependent arise, as dependent on causes, as dependent on parts, as impermanent, then we actually start making better decisions. There's less suffering, there's less pain, there's more relaxation because we're not clinging onto things as hard, and generally more happiness. So that's my understanding of inherent existence, but it's very faulty, so I apologise for being incomplete. Are there any questions over here? Yes. Where did it all come from? The Big Bang. Okay, where did the concept of inherent existence come from? Well, I suppose then we talk about where the mind, by logic, we tried to sort of prove via causes and conditions that the mind is pre-exists this life, because the causes of mind are the previous moment. So therefore, if we follow that logic, then they're previous life, and then the causes of mind continue. So in that continuum, we've learnt to grasp at this true existence, and it's become stronger and stronger within our minds. And it becomes stronger due to a lot of factors. I think a society like ours promulgates a very strong sense of I, very strong sense of I, very strong sense. A lot of societies don't have a separateness from other people. I'm not an anthropologist, but I'm sure there are. But here, maybe people understand more. But there seems to be even societies where there's not so much a sense of I as being an independent I, separate from other people. It's more been us and interdependence. And I think that's how I understand a lot of societies. Yeah. Yes. So so we talk about different views of the self. There are innate ones that we're born with, and others that we learn. So we're born with an innate sense, and then that's what. Sorry, did you want to say something? Were you stretching, or was that a question? Yeah. Oh, don't wait till I finish talking. No, okay. Wait. Yeah. Oh, okay, so it's cause and effect similar to free will and determinism. Yeah, good. Yeah. That was Unit 101 in philosophy that I did at Melbourne University so many years ago. Yeah, free will and determinism. So how does free will and determinism relate to cause and effect? Yeah. It was very. Well, I suppose it's interesting to talk about what free will is. Is there such a thing as total free will where the decision you make is not dependent upon anything else? That's okay. So therefore, are things determined? Is there determinism? And then, if it's determinism, is it fatalism? And then, are we trapped? And is there no solution because we're trapped here? I suppose that's it. The Buddha first sermon the Buddha gave was the Four Noble Truths, which is the nature of our existence here is suffering, so therefore we are trapped in suffering, and that there is a cause of suffering, and that cause of suffering is the grasping at the wrong view of self. And then the Buddha said there's a cessation to that suffering, which is the extinguishment of that sense of self, and then said there's a path. So the Buddha said, yes, if you're trapped in suffering and its cause, it's like determinism. You're just flung ceaselessly by your wrong view and your karma you've created, and you are just like in a whirlpool, trapped in a whirlpool, and you just can't get out. The thing is, you might think that whirlpool is paradise, but it's actually terrible destruction. And then, but there is a cessation to it. So if you want to step out of that whirlpool and get onto the shore, away from the whirlpool, then this is the path to do it. And this is the path. So in that sense, you have to make a free will decision to step out of the whirlpool, which is samsara, the cycle of existence. So yeah, if you're trapped in cyclic existence without any control, then yeah, it's like determinism. But there is a possibility for us to transform, and we just have to make that conscious decision to transform. Yeah, you can have a bit of control slowly. I think control is a stepwise thing. I think only the Buddha has complete control, because they have a complete, perfect view of reality. I say, no, wait a minute, we're going to go try to give as many people. Yes, thank you.
You were talking before about taking that body back to the surface.
Yeah.
And then you talked about the mind.
Yeah.
And you assumed, I think your starting point was the mind is not part of the body or the brain. If you assume the mind is part of the brain is part of the body at the beginning of the mind.
Yeah.
It seems to me you can immediately just assume the mind is separate from the body.
That's right, yeah.
You can say, oh, it's on.
I suppose, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So so the body and the mind, if we have like a dualistic philosophy where there's the body and mind and they're sort of separate, is the mind the brain? I suppose we say, most people say. Yeah. It's an interesting discussion. We would say that in Buddhism that the mind is part of the body, but it's obviously necessary for consciousness to occur. But then you could say that the heart is necessary for consciousness to occur. If you didn't have a heart, and you could say, well, you get an artificial heart. Good. One day we'll probably have artificial brains, so can't function without kidneys. I mean, you can get artificial. You can go on dialysis. Can't function without a liver. So you could say consciousness experience can't occur without those organs. So yeah, the brain is obviously special. It's part of it and allows us to process things. We actually we actually go a bit further beyond the dualism. We actually talk about the subtle energies in the body, the subtle wind energies that allow the mind to function, and that's a subtle energy at it sort of acts as like an intermediary between the body and the coarse body and the mental consciousness. Yeah. So look, it's hard. I can't convince anyone one way or the other. Really, not smart enough. But it's very interesting how some of these great meditators. We will get to you in a minute, don't we? It's how some of these great meditators are able to have experiences that are not dependent on their body. They're not dependent on the body. There are even states of existence in this cosmos that are said to be that the formless realms where there are living beings that exist without a body and have fully developed consciousness. They exist in a state of meditative equipoise. So in that sense, the body is not a necessary, not absolutely essential to have a living being, a sentient being. So it's very interesting. Okay, so this will be the last comment. And people can go if they want, and we'll stay here and talk till midnight. I don't care. But yes, come on, have a cup of tea if you want up there. Hello. Yeah, yep.
And he says that he explains the mind as first time I understood that the mind can't bear uncertainty and empathy, so it creates stories for itself, and it has to make itself the centre, because otherwise
there would be entropy. Yeah. So random, by entropy you mean like randomness, total randomness, if the mind didn't try to... Yeah. I know nothing about that that school of philosophy, no, so I can't comment. Yeah. So anyhow, look, we might as well all go home. So thank you for your patience.